Hello and welcome to Genealogy Quick Start. We are so excited to have you here. I'm Shamel Jordan, your host, and I am so blessed to have all these wonderful special guests who just say yes because they realize how important family history and genealogy are. And today is no exception. We have an amazing guest that I just recently met. I guess maybe it's recently a couple years ago. That would be recent. And Rick Voight of Vivid-Pix is doing the work that we all need. And so he's going to share a little bit about that. And of course, we have Jim and Michael who are back here today to share a little nugget that just it's small, but it's big because of the things that you can learn and really just go a little bit deeper than we do when we just kind of do genealogy on the surface. Um, Before I tell you about our quick starts today, make sure that you subscribe to the newsletter. And also, I try to think of a book that I can share with you. And, recently, when you sit and you think about what people have shared, you learn here a book. I heard this book. Someone kept saying this book is great. This book was like my foundation. And I said, I have that book. I haven't even opened it up yet. That book, if you don't have it, it's probably at most libraries. And this woman's name is on a lot of books, but one of the books that I hear people always talking about is The Essential Guide to Unpuzzling Your Past. And it's a nice thick book, and it is by Emily Kroom. Emily Ann Kroom also co-authored a book, Finding Your African American Ancestors with Franklin Smith. So you want to check that out as well. But I've heard multiple times where people said, this was my Bible when I started with genealogy. So head on over to your library. It might even be available online digitally through your library. Check out Unpuzzling Your Past. So if you are here, you know what to do, whether you are live with us now or you watch in review. Tell us where you are. We love to know where you are. And of course, include your genealogy group because you never know when someone needs a genealogy group. We all need genealogy groups. Please join your local genealogy group. Your family doesn't want to hear all of that minutia and stuff that you're talking about. You need real family historians to talk about the details. But with that being said, what are our quick starts today on Genealogy Quick Start? First up is license to work. I have a cousin who had an uncle who didn't believe in licenses of any kind. Driver's license, marriage license, fishing license, no license. Obviously, Jim and Michael have ancestors who believed in licenses because they're going to tell us how to spot them and then maybe how to get the license. And then we have our special guest, Rick Voight from Vivid-Pix. Check out Vivid-Pix. He's going to tell how to get your mother in photos. We're always on the hunt. We are always on the hunt. So remember, there's the hunt and then there's preservation. And we're going to talk about both of those today. So let me bring out my buddies without further ado. First up, columnist and editor, James M. Bidler. Hey, Jim. Most of you might not know this, but Jim is responsible for many of the titles that we have today. Jim, if I haven't told you how much I appreciate that, kind of jazzing up the show, because I'm kind of like a two-word title kind of person. Thank you.
Just an old headline writer trying to still practice his craft.
Thank you. Next up, genealogy tip of the day, Michael John Neal. And just so you guys don't know that these two fellas have 2 books out. Tell us first the titles of your new books.
Well, mine is Tips and Tidbits for Tracing Germans, and it's a collection of 20 years worth of my German Life magazine columns.
Wow, fantastic. German life columns. Love that. And Michael, what on earth could you have written another book on?
It's more genealogy tip of the day, which I forget how many years the tips is. It's several with the repeats thrown out. 420 plus pages of ideas and tips and things of that type. So that's what's kept me busy for the last few months is getting that all ready to go.
It's a real door stopper.
It's a
It is a
big
door
door
stopper.
stopper. And it's our new quick start come from that today.
Yes.
It
All right.
does. It
So
does.
this is
Yes.
hot off the presses with Michael's book, and Jim will bring a quick start from your book hopefully soon. So let's go ahead and first see who we have here today. Thank you so much for telling us where you are. So yes, we have Valerie Ann. Valerie Ann, we should, if we had badges on StreamYard, you would have one because you are always here. Hi, from let's see, we are Philadelphia area, and of course, Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania. Hi, Robin S. from Houston, Texas. I was thinking about Houston the other day. Is it hot there? Hi, June Hall from Shaker Heights, which I love to say, from AAGS Cleveland, one of Dr. Debbie's. And hi, Anita Payne. Dr. Debbie's folks are our number one in here today. Also, you have Fayette County, Tennessee Genealogy Group. Very good. Thank you, Anita Payne. You're a genealogy junkie. Hello, Wanda Looney from Birmingham. I miss Birmingham so much. I really do. Hi, Cynthia Cruz from Topeka um, Genealogical Society.
But
Hey,
her
Terry
heart,
Burke. Say it again.
but but Cindy Cruz's heart is in the Tulpehocken of Berks County. So
You know where her heart is. I won't argue with that. Hey, Terry Burks from Columbus, Ohio, and AAHSC in Chicago, who's our number one mail opener. So thank you for spreading the word. And she said, Amen, Jim. So you got an amen on that, brother. All right. So, what do we have for this quick start here today? Oh, I forgot to ask you guys a quick question before we get started. Our guest is talking about how, this is how I met your mother. Do you guys know how your parents met or grandparents met?
I'm pretty sure my parents met at a Burn Church picnic. That my dad was there with a couple of his cousins, and mom only lived less than a mile from the church. So that was a starting point. So,
Proximity.
proximity, exactly.
How about you, Michael?
Proximity is a lot of it. My parents met grade school, probably fourth or fifth grade, and my mother's parents met at Luther League, if the story is to be believed.
So, sometimes
So,
it's the cover story that makes it
That's
into the archives.
exactly,
well, what they
exactly.
don't say. So I need to, after this, I need to go call my mom because I forget the story of how they met. But I couldn't understand how my grandpa met my grandmom because she's all the way in Alabama, and they met because she came up on a picking bus. There's a guy who brought a picking bus, and where they stayed over the summer to work in the field happened to be in Berlin. So they met in the field because we were like, Grandmom, he is too crazy. Like, this had to be arranged marriage, right? You were forced to do this, right? She assured us she was in love. So let's go ahead and get started with your quick start, which is license to work. So a little intro on that, please.
Well, there are certain occupations that all it takes is a warm body and the willingness to do manual labor to take the job. But there are other positions that, there's a license you have to get, maybe some education you have to get, maybe some specialized training. And so we're talking teachers are the one that comes to mind. There's some others that we're going to see as well throughout the presentation. But if your ancestor had an occupation where there was some license, and we're going to talk about licenses on official licenses, but there might have been other guilds or whatever that your person might have had to be a
Oh,
member of, that you, or a union perhaps even as well, that you might want to consider what records there could be of that. So while we're talking about licenses, you might want to expand that a little bit out to other groups or whatever that your forebear might have had to be a part of in order to practice his or her trade.
right.
Yeah, unlike me and my first job, which was picking peaches, no license required.
How
Probably
long
not.
did that
Shovel
last?
manure doesn't require it either, but that's a whole other story.
3 weeks until I was laid off. So
All right, let's go ahead and get started with our quick start. License to work. Step one, locate your ancestors' occupation. So we always wonder, like, how do we find these details? Where would we get occupation information?
Death certificate, depending upon the time period, of course, but death certificates and obituaries would be a more recent thing. In the census, those are probably three of the biggies where we could get that. Uh, because if we're talking about something where there's licensure, well, what you see in an estate settlement might suggest they're a farmer or a cooper or whatever, but there's probably is not a license to that. Things that we're talking about, there's probably going to be mention of it somewhere, most likely in a census or a death record, perhaps.
yeah, tax list. That's another
Mm.
good spot for occupations, because there's still some places in Pennsylvania that have what they call an occupational tax, where it's a flat dollar amount based on what your occupation is considered to be. There was a big kerfluffle in Lebanon County it's probably a couple of decades ago now, where they still had on the list of occupations gentlemen, and but not computer programmer, because the list of occupations had last been updated in like the 18 aughts. So
I love
I,
that.
I remember a good newspaper headline when they revised them. There are no more gentlemen in Lebanon County.
That's hysterical. I love that. You always have good tidbits. Okay, so we're using the records that we already have to locate these occupations.
The last example might be, in some cases, a land deed may list an occupation, especially
Yes.
for
Often do.
talk,
Often do.
especially before, in some places before 1820s or so. That's a good place to get it too.
Yeah, and also now it's not quite as common in American records, but in German records, there's like 50 different words for types of farmers. Depending on the size of the farm, depending on what they farmed, depending on whether they were an owner or a leaser or things like that.
Right.
So when you see typical in early American records is they call them a yeoman. Uh,
Yes,
and
yeoman.
and yeah, and that's and I to be honest, I don't know if that is technically a specific time of farmer. I think it's used more generically, but some of the others might have more specific meanings. So you should
No,
look these words
the
up.
yeoman comes from "Yo man, can I borrow some of your equipment?" That's where that comes from. But no, those distinctions, especially in German church records, without trying to get too far afield, they can, were they an owner, were they a tenant, were they a laborer, they all mean farmer in one sense or another, but the distinction would lead you to different types of records based on
Absolutely,
what
absolutely.
Did we
type
say
of
city
farmer.
directories too? Did we mention city
Yes,
directories?
we
Okay.
should.
We did
We
not,
should.
but we opened that up so you would mention it. We wanted you to bring that up. So kudos.
Thanks for giving me a little one. I love it. Thank you.
Hey,
All right,
hey,
so we are
we remember whose show it is. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
all right. On to step two, we located the records. We located, and then the question was a license required? How do you kind of know? Are there like just in general specific things that are required, or how do we figure this out?
I'm going to be honest. That's going to take a little bit of work. It's in some cases teachers have to be licensed. The cosmetologist has to be licensed, depending on what time period we're talking here. If they had a tavern, they might have had to have a license to operate the tavern that was given by the county or the city or the township, depending upon the location. But to determine if a license had to be required, if there was some paperwork to pursue that occupation, you're going to have to do a little bit of research. There are some denominations where if they were a pastor, they might not have had a license per se, but they might have had to get some specialized training. They might have had to get the approval of a church organization in one way, shape, or form, and you'll have to do some research to determine just what hoops they had to jump through.
Yeah, now that's interesting that you bring up clergy, and it's not something, I'll admit, that I've looked into in great detail. But a big deal would be made. I'm primarily knowing the German Reformed, but they would license somebody who was not ordained, and generally they would give them a license to preach and perform the sacraments, and at a particular church for just a particular time period, like a year or two, as kind of a precursor to being ordained. Because once they were ordained, then they kind of had lifetime tenure under good behavior, of course, whatever. But I see that a lot, because some of the congregations records that histories that I've worked with, they were getting pastors right out of seminary, and then the higher body, like Michael's saying, would license them for just a particular amount of time.
Very cool.
And some denominations were not as particular about that as others, and that's where you'd have to learn what the policies and procedures were for whatever denomination your person was practicing, was a practicing member of.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
Oh, just like the licenses more in general, where you got to know the laws of the time. I feel like I'm channeling Judy Russell here. But you got to know the particular laws for the particular area of that particular time to know what was technically required. And then you might have one of Chamel's people who decided, I don't need no freaking license, right?
Well, and even things that are licensed today, if those similar occupations existed 100 years ago, there might not have been any licensure for those, or the process might have been significantly different.
Yeah. Well, we talked. You mentioned in passing taverns, and when we get to the visuals.
I didn't think you ever passed a tavern. Oh, sorry.
You
get the star for the year.
Oh, I think that's a whole constellation, not just the star. Yeah, the tavern licensing system, again, at least in Pennsylvania, but I think in a lot of places, changed radically between pre-prohibition and post-prohibition. Pre-prohibition, it was, at least in Pennsylvania, it was a county system. Post-prohibition, you had these liquor licenses that were assigned to particular municipalities, only a certain number, very difficult to get. Used to be. Now it's loose.
Don't get me started on liquor license. I just heard about people still know where they got the liquor license from, even if it was like way before they were alive. Like this place that has been closed since the 1920s. I've learned just on this weekend which place on Eastham Avenue has that liquor license. They said the Acorn Inn. I'm like, you're not even old enough to know about the Acorn Inn. And they were young people. So yeah, don't get me started. We should talk about tavern and the church. You guys are really deep into this. And I'm going to give one. I would go the opposite way. I would look for what's licensed stuff is available and then go and see if any of my people have it.
There you go. Yep.
All right. Step 3 is to determine the license provider. Did we cover that already? I think you guys.
I think we really did.
All right. Yeah. Step 4 is then to learn about the license requirements. And we covered that for sure. And then step 5 are the records available? So I kind of talked about that. I would look in like JSTOR, besides looking at the county and the town level. Why am I talking? What would you guys do to
I would
fight?
look at the state for some of the things. For one of the examples that we're going to talk about, I would look at the state level, and if it
Okay.
was it something that's after a certain point in time, was there a state license necessary? Some of those records, we'll see an example, may still be online, or that may be the place to access those. Of course, there could be privacy restrictions as well to some of those things, so you'll want to keep that in mind. But if it's statewide things, I would look at state archives to reach out for those bits and clues.
Yeah, and I think there's been a little bit of a trend towards centralization. I think
Okay.
1700s, 1800s, there were more records kept, if there were license requirements at all, on county level. But
Nice.
in the 20th century, growth of the administrative state, more things became, they wanted things to be uniform statewide, as
Right.
opposed to maybe local cronyism.
Yeah.
State
Cronyism. That doesn't happen
cronyism
in New
instead.
Jersey.
State cronyism instead. Yeah. I think
So
you've got a
Like that-
tavern stand mentioned here. That's the
Yeah. Oh, you're winging us back into
I'm
away
winging us
from the
back in.
tangent.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a deed from Berks County, Pennsylvania, and early 1800s. If we get to the detail here, it's in Union Township, Berks County, and it calls his. I don't know if you put the highlight on it. Tavern stand and tract of land. And it's being transferred from one individual to another. Now, this is referring to the land. This is kind of a marker that you should be then looking for a tavern license that might have had to be renewed, maybe even annually, and that you can see the old owner, the new owner, and perhaps even the owner of the land leasing out the tavern to another party, who has the license, even though they don't own the actual land.
Very interesting. I see that all the time, and I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, you have to get the deeds to be for sure. Yeah, because I have people who I know own the tavern, but they didn't own the land. So it's just like, who is this person?
Yeah.
All right, nice. Thank you, Jim.
This comes from I forgot to put the county in Kentucky. This is Washington County tax records from a certain 1853 to 1864, and one of the things that lists there is, and now I've got to turn my head sideways so I can see it. But I believe tavern is listed. Yeah, tavern
Yes.
license, if they had a
Yep.
tavern license. So this was a county tax record that indicated if the person had a tavern license.
That was pretty important to them, huh?
It was. Well, they were taxing it. It was being, it was probably being taxed, and so they wanted to keep track of that. So this was in a local county record that documented those licenses, and this was on that I found on Family Search. And I think there's a couple more in the. This was a little different. This was a newspaper reference. This was from 1968. This really wasn't a list of licenses so much, but it was a list of individuals and what they were getting paid in this academic year. Published in 1968. And my mother, who's listed there, it indicates she has a BA, and she was in the $5,600 to $6,100 annual pay range, based on her experience and her education. I don't have an example of it, but I've seen other newspaper accounts a little bit earlier when teacher certification was different. You would take a test at the county level, and my aunt in 1919 took she was a high school graduate, but she took the test to teach probably up through the 8th grade, and she passed it. She never did teach, but she did pass the test and would have been allowed to teach. But that was when the county gave out those certificates, where today in most states that's a state responsibility. But that might be something you might see in the newspaper as well, individuals who had passed an exam. This is a little different, but it's one more example of something you might not think about being in the being in the
Newspapers.
newspaper.
Everything's in the newspaper, just like all genealogy records are online, right?
This is a little bit different. This comes from the Illinois Educator Licensure Information System, and there are living people on this as well. I didn't pick any of those that I know, but I did pick for my late aunt. It's a little bit small there, but it's got her name, Ruth I. Ufkus, and then her license ID number, her application date, when it was issued, when it expired. And it had lapsed because she didn't renew it after she retired from teaching, because I don't think she did any substitute teaching there. But there might be a modern current database that might list some individuals. So you might want to see. I just Googled Googled Illinois Teacher Certification Database. I'm pretty sure was what I Googled, and this came up, and it asked if she was deceased. It says no, but she is deceased. My mother was in here as well with some information about her different certification and endorsements, without going into all what that means, listed for her as well. What you would want to do if you found a reference like this, then if it's somebody you're really interested in, find out what these things mean. Because this one didn't have many abbreviations on it. My mother's had quite a few because she has some different endorsements. Is to research those and find out what they mean. That may take a little digging to do that. Maybe not even something you can Google. You might have to actually interact with a human.
Oh no, we have to talk to people
to find, at least email somebody to find out what those things mean. To find out, what those different codes and phrases might mean.
I love that, Michael.
But you never know when one of those databases, you may get a birth date for somebody, you may get a town of residence. You just don't know what you might, so if you had a cousin who you think was a cosmetologist 20 years ago in Kansas, you might just do a Google search for that data, see if there's a database online you can query. You might find some reference to them. You just don't know until you look.
So like skilled laborers and professionals, seems like there's a chance that you might be able to find something on them. Oh, very cool. And then you have your last step, which was to document and share.
The other thing we didn't mention is there may be, particularly some of these certifications that a person might have, they may be in your set of papers you got from grandma or Uncle Herman or whomever, their teacher certificate, their membership in the union or whatnot. They might have kept those papers, and so they might be in somebody's attic somewhere too, possibly.
Most definitely. And a lot of tavern stuff is in the papers, which is really cool. And especially like, are they, because they have to file or something? I saw that a lot, where they had to file a certain amount of money to get them. So
and you could even see when the newspaper, if they got their license revoked, tavern owners get their liquor licenses revoked all the time.
ABC just was at So Cafe.
Right. You might find some of that too.
Very cool. So let's see. Do we have any? Professionals are really good. Let's see what Kathy says. Oh, okay. So there was a normal school. Those are the teacher schools, right?
Right.
Everyone in South Jersey went to Glassboro, which is now Rowan. So so you can go to like their, when there are teachers, you can usually go, or students, you can go to the special collections maybe to find stuff about
special
teachers.
Collections. So that some of the normal colleges are now universities. You go to their website, they might have yearbooks online. They may have an alumni registry or something where you could find out some of that attendance information, perhaps.
Fantastic. Let's go through your steps for license to work. Is it up there? Almost, maybe. No.
It is.
All right. Step 1, locate your ancestor's occupation. Step 2, was a license required? Step 3, determine the license provider. Step 4, learn about license requirements. Step 5, are records available? And step 6, document and share. Just write up a little ditty, like a little one-pager or something, and put the license on there, and you're done. It doesn't have to be any really big deal, right?
Exactly.
Jim and Michael, thank you so much. Were they great, everyone? Say they're great. They were wonderful. They did a great job. All right. Our special guest is coming. Give me 1 second. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for Genealogy Quick Start. I am so honored today that he's come off the road for a second, and probably if he was on the road, he would still be in his van, streaming in and saying hi to everyone. Everyone, please say hello to Rick Voight, co-founder and CEO of Vivid-Pix. How you doing, Rick?
Great, Shamel. How are you?
I'm good. So, Rick, we asked all of our special guests to share with us your origin story. How did you get started in enjoying family history research? And when did you know that you were hooked?
So it's been an interesting journey. We started out in such a way that my daughter went to the Air Force Academy, and my mom asked my daughter, I think we can trace ourselves back to Daughters of the American Revolution. Would that be of interest to you? And all of a sudden, we were able to see this long line come down that we never saw before. And I think that was probably a precursor to a lot of things to happen.
Yes, it usually happens because of the wonderful school system and stuff that, when they ask their students to, but your mom just saying, hey, would this be, that is so adorable. I love
Truth.
that. What a blessing, because so many people don't have that. So wow, I hope you guys are really appreciating that. So thank you
Yeah,
for
we
coming
did.
on.
And in fact, so the fun part of family history, right, is how did it all start? So, my great, 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 and I couldn't tell you how many greats, was an indentured service servant in order to get a boat ride over from England to Ipswich, Massachusetts. So it was
Oh wow.
interesting what people were able to do.
And the ingenuity and the drive and determination to do something different. So that's really
Absolutely.
cool. And that's great you were able to have that information. So, Rick, you have a quick start that is just so adorable. I wish I was your daughter so I could have this story of my people, and I can still do it. I can go get my parents' stuff, and I could still have my mom tell the
I want to hear
story
yours.
of how I met your mother in photos. That's what Rick's going to do with us today. So, tell me how that came together. Like, why did you create something that talked about how you met your wife?
So I'm very involved in bringing forth the stories of genealogy and family history. And having been in the photo business for 39 years, in, gosh, just a couple of weeks that I'll be in the photo industry for 39 years. And we've got all these wonderful photos, whether they were our own or our ancestors. And oftentimes we don't know the stories. Oftentimes you don't know the people in them, right? Let alone the stories behind them. And that's what we as a company, Vivid-Pix, have set out to do, is to make it easy to get the knowledge from all these wonderful photographs. And the epiphany came to me when I was actually doing a scan and a storytelling of how I met my wife.
Love that. I love that. So let's do your quick start, which we jokingly called How I Met Your Mother, which is, we all should do these little vignettes because they strung together. Wow. Wow. What an impact. And we do all this research and it just sits here. And one day we're going to write that book. But why not just take it piece by piece and share with everyone? So you ready to get started, Rick?
I am. You've got that list that I need to answer. Go, girl, go.
All right. So, how I met your mother in photos. Step one is to inventory your collection. So, we all have stuff, right? I know. So, how do you get started with our inventory collection crafts?
And it's hard, right? Because we have our pictures everywhere. We have them in albums, we have them in frames, we have them on computers because we've scanned some of them, we've pulled them down from online. We know some of them are sitting with mom, we know some of them are sitting with other people. And in order for us to be able to really understand our photo history, we have to take an inventory of what we got.
All right. That's what we have to do. Take an inventory of what we have. And then for step 2, you have determine your end goal. So what kind of goals might have you had, or that you hear that people have? I know mine would be family reunion oriented. I'd want to like get something together for the family reunion.
And that's the perfect one, right? So it might be it might be that you have a reunion which is coming up that is going to identify the various people that have served in the military since this was the 80th anniversary of D-Day, example.
Yeah.
And if that be the case, then here you could actually go through, I want to be able to go through our family history and understand who were part of the military, or, you know, how many people were part of X birth years. You know, it might be the 1941 to 1945, or any number of things. It might be that you want to be able to create a photo book, and you want to be able to make sure that you're sharing all of the elements of a particular photo book, because that's a story.
A story. Yes. Yes. I love it. It's a story. You know, out there, what are you collecting? What's your end goal? I'd love to hear what type of, you have all these photos. What's one small little thing that you could do? What's an end goal? Put it in the chat, put it in the comments, put it out in the universe. So maybe you'll get it done. That's what I try to do. So determine your end goal, and it doesn't have to be to catalog your entire collection, right? Start with something small. So step 3 is then to organize and capture images and more. So what are some of, how would you suggest we do that?
Yeah, so let's tie together 1 and 2 because it feeds into 3. So let's say that I want to be able to capture a story on how my daughter got to go to college. You know, she ended up being a recruit to the Air Force Academy. And as such, there were many steps that got her there. I have photographs throughout the years that was telling the story, and that ended up leading into the collection of images. And then the culmination of that photo book was her graduation, and all that celebration and the people that came out. So, you know, what's your goal? You know, I knew that year I was going to have to create, and I'm a photo guy, right? So I knew I better create something that was kind of cool. I worked for HP at the time, so it was probably a good idea for me to have something photo related. And wouldn't it be fun for us to be able to have a nice remembrance?
Very nice. I love that. Especially we recently had all these graduations happening. And so you're organizing your image and capture. It would be images, documents as well, because I think you have a video where someone's using a document, putting documents in there very nicely. So you organize them and to capture. And then
and along those lines, in the organization, most stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Okay.
So how do you actually write the story? Think about that. You need to entice somebody to want to read the story.
Very true. Very true. It's called a narrative arc, everyone. All right. So step 4 would be to create a plan to capture. And so I know you have suggestions on capturing. Talk to us about them.
Well, so we've created a product called a memory station. And the memory station is designed for folks to be able to quickly and easily scan. And if that be the case, if you're able to quickly scan because you've already organized, what do you scan and when do you scan so that you're leading up to the story? So, and I'm able to A, then scan, then B, I'm able to make a voice recording about that individual image. And I know I'm able to then put those together. So create the plan to capture the full story. And then we've created a tool to make that easy.
I love that. So it's kind of like, to me, what I would do is I would get like the images, like what are like the 5 images, 10 images, and then write a little bit about each one and put them in order and write a little bit about each one. Like you don't have to be, Spielberg or whoever the new hot directors are, but just kind of put those together. And your plan to capture your memory station is amazing. And what I'm noticing, especially if you're in a urban area, your library, because Rick is in a lot of them, you can go to the library and they have all kinds of scanning equipment. And if you're lucky, you have Rick's scanning stuff at your library. So definitely check that out. And so you create your plan, and then step 5 is to capture the story.
Exactly. And that's when the fun starts. So what you're saying there is I want to write down this story. I need to make it impactful. So make sure you're capturing the story, the essence of what it is you want to say.
And the fun of it, when
Yes.
I was talking about how my grandmom and grandpa, met, there's some fun and playfulness in that, especially that it's just amazing that the two of them got together. So, from all the way down south. And so, have some fun with it. So Rick, I want to share with everyone a video that they can see that will show someone how they did this. And then we're going to show how you met your mother. Give me 1 second.
Well, so how I met my mother is a fun story, which we'll have to add to, which is in posting how I met my wife and how my daughter perceived, oh my gosh, I've heard this story. So just a slight pivot there.
I love that. Here we go. If I can find it. No, because I was too busy listening to you.
This is Anne. So Anne here, this is the first time she's ever used this equipment.
Okay, there we go. I haven't done this in a very long time. All right. I guess I just do it here. There we go. Tell me if thumbs up when you can hear the sound.
No sound.
No sound. All right. So talk to us about what she's saying. You can't hear the sound?
We can't. Perhaps try a second way.
Are you able to see or hear the sound?
No, we are not. So right now we're looking at the two of us.
I can't tell. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
But were you able to see the video or hear it?
See, yes, hear, no.
Oh, I can't hear you now at all. Hold on. Can you speak again? I'm sorry. I'm not able to hear you.
1, 2, 3. Hello,
Oh, okay.
hello,
I can hear you
hello.
now. Were you able to see or hear the video?
See, yes, hear, no.
Okay, so I'm going to play it and you can talk about what she's doing while it's happening.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get it there.
So Anne here is thinking about, I've got all these photos and documents and mementos. Isn't there a good way for me to be able to capture the story? I'm going to scan them. It's so easy. She's putting the image stabilizer down on top of the photos and documents, and she's pressing scan. What's cool about the scanner is it's a top-down scan as opposed to a flatbed or a sheet fed. So that allows us to be able to not just scan photos and documents, but objects as well. And it keeps perfect resolution, sharpness, up to 1.5 inches and very good up to 3 inches tall. So Vivid-Pix Restore software, patented software, been around for 8 years, will automatically improve old faded photos and documents. So she's looking at this 9-up screen and saying which one looks best to her. She chooses the middle. And with one click, she makes this old photo look great. Then what she's able to do is she's able to record a voice memory of her grandmother who was actually picking strawberries on the farm. And I think there were a dozen girls. And a fun line here that Anne speaks to is the lady in the front right without the bonnet is not wearing a bonnet because she's a bit of a rebel. And then she clicks stop record. And she's able to scroll up and down with the green arrows. So then in stories, you've scanned multiple images and or objects. You're able to see them in the story screen. You're able to remove them if you wish. You're able to move them if you wish in order to be able to create the storyline by clicking create. And then she's sharing this wonderful story with all of us. So the first document here is an emigration record of her grandfather coming to the United States from Ireland. Then we're hearing again about Grandma, who was out there on the farm. And then this is called a pouch. And Grandpa wore this. He was in the Irish Army, and he had this as his uniform in World War I. So just as you described, Shamel, is you're not necessarily trying to digitize everything that you've got. What you're trying to do is just create a story with helpful, impactful items. And with 3 items, she was able to tell a really cool story.
Really a cute story. Definitely check out that on, I'm going to put it in the chat for you so that you can hear her. I'm sorry about that. I hope that we'll be able to, I got to figure out how to share that video. Let me put this in the chat first so that everyone can go and listen to Anne. She's really cute.
She is cute.
Comments.
And as you noticed in the interface, we've made it super easy. We spent a lot of time, Vivid-Pix spent a lot of time just to make it super easy to click a button and do what you want to do.
So let's try this again and see if I can do this better.
How I met my wife?
Yes. No, not better than how you met your wife. Hold on. So yes, you shared about, how you created this video and why, which was adorable. Share screen. Is there sound? Share audio. Share tab instead of screen. Okay. I think this might work. And give me a thumbs up. There we go. Also share audio if you can. Let me share screen. And
So I went to the University of Denver my freshman year of college, loved the mountains, loved the scenery, and ended up meeting a girl who I love for my entire life, my freshman year. So if you remember the days at college, you'd walk into class the first day and check out what was available for meeting someone new. And I was very fortunate that there was a pretty girl in the front row of a cultural anthropology class, and had the nerve to introduce myself by borrowing a pencil that first day and sitting down next to her the next day. And this picture is within a couple of weeks of us meeting. I don't think we were actually dating yet, or we were dating-ish. We were studying, we're getting to know each other, but we weren't actually dating yet. One of our favorite things to do on the weekends was to go up to Estes State Park, Rocky Mountain National, and camp. Thank you, Nauko, for cooking. Nauko brought out the smile in me. I truly did not have a great smile growing up, and just the cheerfulness and what Nauko brought out in me by getting to spend time with her, and the exuberance, the fun. She's been wonderful, and I think this photo captures quite a bit. So what do you think? A little bit nicer of a smile? And I really mean it. I did not have a great smile until I met this lovely lady, and she's always been there for me.
I love that. You make me, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. So you definitely you created a plan and you captured that story. Did you have anything else you wanted to share? It's just so adorable.
Well, and what's fun about it is, so there are the three of us. So my wife, my daughter, and myself. And we're really, really close. And when I posted this video on social media, she said, I've heard that story my whole life, but I've never seen the pictures.
Oh.
And there's something very different to see your mom and dad being younger than she is now, at that beginning of dating time, because we've all had a life. And so that was her first comment. And it was either the first or the second sentence was that. The other sentence was, classic story, guy hits on girl in college class, and I'm the result. Right? So the meeting stories are wonderful ways to bring forth the family history that is not names and dates. It's
Right.
the fun stuff.
It's the in between the documents stuff. No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing such an intimate and personal story, because we spend so much time in the past. And there are so many stories to be told right now by the people who are living right now. And I love your idea of capturing that with the tools that we have today so that they'll survive. There are a lot of people we can't ask those stories, but there are so many people we can ask that story, whether it's our direct ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, our aunties and uncles, their stories are equally, and cousins too. The big cousins, their story are equally as interesting, and they want to tell the story. So let's go through your steps, Rick, for how I met your mother in photos. Step 1, inventory your collection. Step 2, determine your end goal. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to boil the ocean, as they always told us at work. Step 3, organize to capture images and more, photographs, documents, and artifacts, 3D things. Step 4, create a plan to capture. And step 5, capture the story. If you have not been there yet, please take a look at vivid-pix.com to see what's available there for you. So, Rick, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and sharing your product and reminding us, there's technology out there that can help us. So thank you.
Jamel, thanks for having me on. And it's always fun spending time with you, and to all of your listeners, your viewers, very nice to have spent a little bit of time with you this evening.
Thank you, and have a fantastic evening. Don't leave, Rick. Where's my music? I think I have some music for that.